A small rowing boat paused beside us, the still, glassy water holding its breath while we wait on the grassy bank. It is sunset. The sky is awash with autumnal light. Way off in the horizon, the sun still blazes a fresh, vivid yellow. So while the heat of the day has subsided, it still tracks over the unseen land beyond, warming the faces of those who turn to catch the rays of light that bathe them in a comforting and warming glow. Rising heat diminishes as the sun moves east. The sky is shifting silently, moving through a rainbow of colours, a palette that softly shuffles through tones of pale lemon, blonde apricot, soft rose, and lavender cotton. Traces of striated cloud arc from the left up into the centre of the sky, trails of a long forgotten formation. These wisps of moisture floating in the air are held like traces of the day, sinking slowly from sight. Their buttery blush reflects below on the mountains and the water. Lying like lace on the slumbering hills is a mellow golden light. It melts over the treetops, merging the forest into a singular form that solidifies the shape of the mountainside. So it might be soft to the touch, yet it is static in shape. A blonde sheen rests on a bed of indigo and violet that deepens as the sun glides further towards the horizon. This changing light is moving the mountain further and further from our gaze as soft purples and quiet blues emerge, their tones shifting in the sun's changing ray. The hills seem to glide inexorably further into the distance. The elasticity of the scene is fostered by the clear, soft grasses where we stand that gently sway and whisper in the breeze. We can see each fibre, filament, cord, and thread of the long stems and fluffy seeds in the grasses on the bank. They reach towards the small boat, arcing over the glossy oar and the boards at the port and the stern. It's a welcoming gesture that layers the foreground with delicacy and strength. As an oar anchors the small craft against the riverbank, the water ripples gently from its hull, imperceptibly stirring the surface. Beneath, the currents move restlessly, fluctuating with the rocks and the weeds, the mire and the mud on the bed below. Ribbons of this hidden activity are highlighted in pale gold, created by the evening light that pools around the boat. trees on the far bank throw their shadows into this river, febrile and shaking in the cool waters, their branches etched precisely against the reflected evening sky. The bank, here in the mid-ground, is downy with heather and grass, thick with mushy peat and damp marshy ground. Its edges are meticulously and methodically carved by the meandering river. A hint of the water's power can be felt at the tip of this bank, which meets a confluence, eddying in circles as it collides with contrasting currents. This is the cut in the loch beyond that has created an outlet which provides release for the water that is held and embraced by the landscape encircling its borders. The loch is glassy and calm, belying the deep, deep canyon beneath that stretches down into the earth, water so dark and unexplored it is sublime. This obscured energy escapes briefly where the water caps white, moving swiftly into the outlet for release and new adventure. So we leave this idyllic scene, seemingly unruffled by wind or rain, still and restful, with the occasional flopping trout slapping on the surface and a squadron of flies buzzing fruitlessly by the water's edge. The gold tint of sun touching the land and conjuring the sweet smell of grass, peat and pine, and the night sky that will soon fill with stars, a new velvety night sky being unveiled. A warm wind lifts the storm clouds in the distance. They swoop down and gently roll towards us. There will be rain, driving rain, that fills the gullies and streams, reaching into the rivers and seas beyond. But for now, it is still. Limitless air expands towards the horizon. The land folds gently over the undulating hills that are softly punctuated by trees, their green leaves shifting and bustling in the whispering breeze. Here, in the foreground, a solitary man, gently walking a horse, sways past a neat, deciduous tree, not much taller than him. The shadow beneath softly stamping its presence into the grass, throwing the scene into tonal perspective. The swish of the horse's tail follows its gait, swaying in a stately movement down a sandy track towards a clay-roofed house, hidden amongst a grove of trees at the bottom of the hill. The horse and rider move beyond a flock of sheep, smudges on the field, their faces bowed to the grass as they chew contentedly, their hooves squishing in the muddied ruts that run like ribbons through the wet grass. 3 figures look on to this scene with us. One wearing an orange hat that sweeps over and hugs the crown of his head. He's gesticulating while talking. Where is the rider going? Perhaps he's asking. Or, did you hear where that man is going? Can you believe it? The third man sits watching the retreating rider. A dog nearby him arches his back as the clip, clop of the horse's hooves recede slowly as the moments tick on. This group of men have stopped near a fallen branch that stretches out across the sandy track, fallen from a previous storm in this wind-swept land. In their midst, the weather swills and sways, moving stealthily over the distant cooling hills. The breeze gathering energy and making the leaves rustle and whip against their branches. Large drops of rain soon begin to fall, and as the clouds come sailing forward, the grey and blue of the watery air spreads over all the sky and drenches the land in its wake. We enter the cove in the afternoon. The sun-soaked rocks, warm to touch. The air is humid, with a light breeze on our faces. This calms the mood and slows the heartbeat. A woman sits at the heart of the scene, gazing out to the boats, lazily bobbing in the breeze, shimmering in the sunlight, so they merge with the water, at once coming and receding from view, merging in and out of the horizon, ghostly and translucent. The woman's hat shades her face from the bright light, and she rests on a step, leaning back to take in her setting. The water resting in the bay is a dark jade in the shade of a cliff that rises and marches along the headland. The striated rock face is soft, with eroding sandstone crumbling and powdery in the crevices and clefts that have risen from abrasion over time. The water below sits at high tide, with just a splash against the rock, staining a meandering line along the base of the bluff. Almost like a polished rock, the blackened green, static water is just disturbed with a hint of movement in the white crest gently batting the cliff and rippling in from a current that runs into the inlet and past two large rocks in the middle of the bay. The brilliance of sunlight shines on the water, casting a radiance white on the surface that makes you squint in defense. So intense is the glare. It's like a slick of ice creeping stealthily, solidifying liquid. The hues of white are layering over an olive green and muted cerulean blue. The seawater looks viscous and thick. The ruffling clouds are reflected here, stretched out and extended to their limit, and revealing in their sprawl the palest blue sky, diffuse with the bright light of a summer's day. The splitting cloud makes no sound. It is silent, a casual separation that gently unfolds with the moments as the day lengthens and advances. The gentle cry of an occasional gull is marked out against this hushed tableau. One bird swoops down to the mouth of the cove. Another rises with the wind up towards the downy green of the cliff top. Here, grass slips like cooling magma over the edges of these cliffs, solidifying and smoothing the surfaces, eddying with terrain. This is a place to lie and feel the strong sun warming your skin, the grass filled with dry moss that is like a pillow under your weary bones. Sit up and look out to a limitless sea. Then lie down again and shade your eyes from the sun to watch the clouds as they shape-shift through the sky. Gently, quietly, shafts of light fall like gossamer through the clouds' opening vents. The dust and the mist rising in a quiet vortex as though pulled up by an angelic force. This is respite.